You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Can we hack the planet to stop climate change? There are some wild ideas out there to fundamentally manipulate the world around us. The sun, the soil, the oceans, to stave off global warming and its impacts. Increasingly, climate geoengineering is being finessed and financed. Today, we debate its worth. Hello and welcome to Climate Conversations. I'm Jack Board. Hello to Liling Tan. Welcome to the stage for today's parley.
Hi, Jack Board. Thank you for that very warm welcome ahead of what I hope will be a riveting argument on this very contentious topic.
Yep, a debate on our agenda today between the two of us. And before we get into that discussion, your chance to pick a side. Now, you can choose the affirmative or the negative, a cheerleader for climate geoengineering, or a critic, a gloom leader, you might call it.
Gloom leader. I'll be the gloom leader to your cheerleader.
What a surprise that you've chosen to go with the negative. Okay, so I think just to say as well, these discussions don't necessarily reflect our opinions about this topic. Debate for the sake of bringing up both sides of the argument, which we hope you'll enjoy. Take your side as well. Team Jack, Team Liling. Okay, let's do it.
All right, bring it on. Oh, wait,
okay.
No, but before that, we still have quiz.
Before we have to do the quiz.
Tease the quiz.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay. I'm so excited.
Now, I think it's kind of a tough one this week. No multiple choice options, no rankings. Just tell me the answer. Related to solar geoengineering, which we will talk about a little bit more, Liling, did you know that Southeast Asia is kind of directly linked to the origins of the idea of using aerosols in the atmosphere to cool the Earth? There's your little sort of bonus hint. I want to know what event occurred that inspired this idea.
Okay. I know what kind of event. I don't know the specific one. And I'll give our listeners a clue. Kaboom!
Well, wow. Okay. I hope everyone got that at home. And sounds like you're on track for half a point here at the end of this. But, let's see. All right. The answer will be at the end. Now it's time for our main story this week. Let me take you to Australia's Great Barrier Reef. Scientists are spraying fine sea salt particles into the atmosphere. Their goal, to cool ocean surface temperatures and protect coral reefs by brightening marine clouds to reflect more sunlight away from the Earth. To Alaska, where to slow Arctic ice melt and reduce regional warming, researchers were looking to spread tiny glass microspheres made of silicon over thinning sea ice. Or how about to Dominica, in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, a green mineral called olivine is being spread on beaches, which, when reacting with CO2 and seawater, forms a bicarbonate, locking carbon away and reducing ocean acidification. And to Iceland, where large facilities are trying to capture atmospheric carbon dioxide before it's injected permanently into rock formations. These are just some of the bold ideas scientists are testing to cool the Earth. And they're happening all over the world. Expensive, unproven, sometimes controversial experiments. But it's all about buying time, hoping a moonshot solution could contribute to saving humanity as we continue to pollute and heat up our planet. Now, Liling, I can see your face as I already start to give you some ammunition here.
Yes, you did.
I think we know where you'll be going with this. Kind of what are your first thoughts on hearing about some of these climate geoengineering projects? Because you can't deny that they kind of sound pretty interesting.
Well,
as a journalist.
They do, but you kind of summed it up for me, right? What did you say? Expensive, unproven, sometimes controversial experiments. A lot of them are basically all that and then some. So on the coral reefs, you're talking about marine cloud brightening, or known as MCB. Theoretically, sure, it makes sense, as theories often do, Jack. But in practice, there are issues. Cloud types, for example, vary, atmospheres vary, temperatures vary, and there are unknown risks to weather patterns and ecosystems. And at least one study I've seen showed the risk that it could actually increase heat in certain regions. And it's also hard to track and monitor exactly how effective this concept is. Now, to your bit about slowing... So far, yes.
So
but we'll get
far.
to that. We'll
Sounds
get to
like
that.
It should be researched a bit more.
Now, to your bit about slowing Arctic ice melt by spreading those tiny silica beads on the ice to reflect sun away. There is also the unknown but potential risk on marine biodiversity, especially plankton populations, a risk also inherent in marine cloud brightening. And then you talked about olivine, which I think is called olivine because it's green in color, if I'm not wrong, the mineral, right?
Olivine. I think
olivine. Spreading olivine on beaches to capture carbon dioxide, it can release other elements, including nickel and chromium, that can be detrimental to marine ecosystems as well. And mining olivine can also damage environments as well as people's health. And when you're talking about, what was the other one? Carbon capture. We've talked about carbon capture and storage before, Jack. The argument, of course, is that it's still energy intensive to do that. And there is no knowing what will happen to all that carbon stored away forever and ever. I mean, is anything really forever, Jack?
Look, well, you've really just gotten straight into it. I'm just like unpacking the intro to this segment. Okay, yeah, some fair points about these specific projects, but in terms of this debate, I think we got to talk about the fundamentals of the argument. Why there are people out there trying to do these. They're not just doing them for fun, mostly not doing it to make money. Of course, there are some for-profit enterprises here. But my main point here, and I think you cannot argue against it, is we need a plan B. It would be irresponsible for us to not be exploring the potentials of these new types of technologies. Right now, it's pretty clear that we are just not on track to keep global temperature rise within 1.5 degrees. At 1.5 degrees, we're almost there, right? We're already seeing so many climate impacts. Just look around us everywhere. So if we have any hope of trying to solve this planetary issue for every person on this planet, we have to do this. We have to try a whole range of solutions, and to not pursue them would be scientific negligence. A lot of these projects are being done by esteemed researchers. They're not out there trying to make money. They're trying to understand the world around us, looking for options to help solve what are unanswerable questions right now. And do you think that we're going to limit temperatures within a livable range just looking at all the evidence right now, Liling? I like
don't.
To be optimistic normally, but it's not looking good, is it?
No, it isn't. So we do need a plan B, yes.
So climate geoengineering could serve as this emergency measure to limit the worst impacts: extreme heat, crop failure, sea level rise, if our mitigation efforts fail. Because I'm not saying we stop those. And then, if we can get on track, why not complement that mitigation action with these engineering options too? And it's becoming part of mainstream science for a reason.
Okay, so yes, you are right. We do need a plan B. On that, I fully agree with you. But we need a plan B.
Debate over. Debate over.
Don't get your hopes up just yet. So we need a plan B, yes, but it has to be a plan B that efficiently complements decarbonization, right? The problem is so many of these emerging technology and concepts and hypotheticals are taking up time and resources away from plan A, which is to decarbonize, to transition to renewables, to recalibrate how we produce and consume and waste. And geoengineering can complement decarbonization if it does not take time and resources away from the green transition. But look at who's investing in your plan B. Carbon capture and storage is widely funded by fossil fuel companies and hard to abate steel and cement producers, the worst industrial emitters. And one argument is that carbon capture often also relies on fossil fuels, and that a lot of that CO2 captured go back into enhancing oil recovery from mature fields. And to your point about not doing this just to make a profit, that sounds like profit making to me. And Jack, these are the guys putting money into these geoengineering theories and concepts, and they're putting a lot of money into it. And it's more expensive because it also comes at the expense of decarbonization. Back to you.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you here. I mean, you're talking about one small aspect of the climate geoengineering prism here. You're talking about CCS. Okay,
well,
and yes, it has a lot of links
not just that. I'm saying it's taking attention away from the focus, which should be on decarbonization.
I think we have a lot of focus on the mitigation efforts. CCS, yes, strong links to fossil fuel companies, not all of it, but a lot of it. Unfortunately, they have to be part of the mitigation solution. And then all these other types of technologies that we're talking about is not being done by fossil fuel companies. And you also kind of bring up the steel and cement producers. We can't function as a society on this earth, I don't think, without steel and cement. There doesn't seem to be any technology to replace these hard-to-abate industries. So surely we have to look for an option to remove those emissions. How else are we going to solve the problems when, we're producing more and more infrastructure all the time? Now, all these solutions may seem expensive now as well, but if they are scalable and if they work, they could end up being really cheap. They could also work really fast. So some studies that I've read show that the planet could be cooled within a year given the right technology scaled up. We just have to work out which one it is. 1 year. So in fact, the cost of implementing global geoengineering programs is projected to be significantly lower than other major climate mitigation strategies. So let's look at some numbers. If we look at solar geoengineering. So this is a whole range of technologies with the basic aim of blocking the sun, scattering incoming radiation away from the Earth. So we're talking about that cloud brightening, reflecting sun rays back to space, cloud thinning, which could let heat out. And then we also have stratospheric aerosols. So that's like pumping gas into the sky with different cooling effects. So there have been a few studies looking at the cost benefits of these projects, of some of these projects. It would cost an estimated $100 billion to implement a global solar program. So compare that to $1 trillion or more required for an alternative mitigation option like the wide-scale shift towards nuclear energy, a tenth of the cost if we all just went towards nuclear, for example. And we see nuclear being rolled out in new places right now. It's part of the suite of solutions that we have. It's expensive. It carries risk. So should we not do that as well?
Okay.
If we get this right, it could prove to be a really affordable and palatable and effective option.
You're talking about nuclear power, and I just want to make a very obvious point here. Nuclear power works. It's been working for decades across multiple countries. Even Southeast Asia is now considering giving it a shot with the emergence of small modular reactors, possibly changing the game, making nuclear power more affordable and accessible as well. Now, geoengineering isn't working yet. And even if it could, how long would it take and how much hotter would we get by that point? You said what? It would take a year to cool things down. But when? 50 years from now? 100 years from now? When would we actually have the scalable technology to actually make a difference? And how much money would we have poured into it that could have been better used elsewhere?
Well, this is why I make the point that the research has to be done. We need to support the scientific institutions that are trying to find this solution because the prize at the end is so great. Nuclear energy is not going to save this planet. If we had 100% nuclear energy, we're headed for Armageddon.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's talking about 100% nuclear energy.
It's not going to cool us down.
We're talking about a mix of renewables, right?
That's not going to save us. We can have 100% renewable energy around the whole planet, and we'll still be heating up, right? We're still going to be heating up. How are we going to cool down this planet?
How much fossil fuel, how energy intensive do you think these solutions are?
Let the researchers find out what can be done. Maybe they can power all of their solutions with clean energy as required.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay.
Let's think of like the people here. Let's think about the people. So the poorer communities that are highly vulnerable They won't be able to afford to adapt to this fast-warming planet. We already see it around our region. And we see the clear reluctance more and more at UN climate conferences that you and I attend or talk about for wealthy nations that have actually caused climate change to pay for it, to hand over large sums of money to countries feeling the impacts. What if this large-scale geoengineering on a global scale could offset those needs somewhat and be the solution? Let the wealthy nations pay for the research, the implementation of these technologies that offsets the previous damage they've caused. And they don't want to hand over cash, but maybe they'll hand over cash to researchers and companies, right, to sort out this issue. And imagine the potential outcomes of that. It could, for example, significantly reduce heat-induced deaths in hot, poor regions that are not able to cope right now. I think that's something worth striving for.
Yes, but it could also raise temperatures and heat levels and make things worse. There is no way to predict the impact this would have on the atmosphere across different regions, on biology and diversity, animal and human life. And there is no way, too, of knowing if a geoengineering project happening on the coast of California could endanger a region far away like Southeast Asia. And you know, Jack, a few weeks ago, we were talking about the weaponization of water. We're now also talking about the potential to weaponize weather, because if one nation has the means to manipulate weather and heat conditions across its skies and in its oceans, what's to stop it from inducing conditions that can devastate another country or region? Now, weaponizing weather is another critical and lucrative case for geoengineering. I know it sounds a lot like science fiction, but, you know, it's been talked about, and we humans have an incredible ability to weaponize just about anything and a frightening appetite to do so. So my gazillion-dollar question is it really all worth the risk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Because if we don't do it, we're not going to have a functioning planet. The planet's not... All right. We might have some more wars. Have you seen the forecast for the emerging conflicts that are going to occur because of climate change?
Have you seen the forecast?
If we have a
hunger
planet,
hotspot,
maybe we'll have some
report.
cooler minds.
You think the heat
some
is
cooler
causing
weather,
people to just
some
get too
cooler perspectives.
cranky people just fighting with each other? All right.
My final point. We are actually already doing this. And we have been doing this for decades with this technology that we've been talking about. But we're just trying to do it in reverse now. So instead of harmfully re-engineering the natural functions of the planet, this is a scientific movement, just the pursuit of the opposite. So what do you think that fossil fuel companies have been knowingly doing for decades? They have been re-engineering the functions of the planet. And let's go through some of the impacts. Fossil fuel combustion accounting for 89% of global CO2 emissions, which drives our global warming, extreme weather, sea level rise, biodiversity collapse. Methane pollution from these same companies, absorbing, trapping infrared radiation, raising temperatures, toxic petrochemicals, plastics, pesticides, fertilizers in our waterways, our bloodstreams, the air we breathe, the soil that we farm. So if there are solutions to suck back some of those emissions, the heat, the damage, why would we not try it? The side effects are worrying, is what you've been saying. Hello, let's look at the side effects of the major industries the global economy has been relying on throughout the post-industrial age. We're already doing it, so let's just do it in a better way.
Wait, that is precisely why these industries need to transition away from business as usual and start greening, transition away from fossil fuels. We can't defend side effects from geoengineering on the basis of how we were okay with the side effects of fossil fuel production. If there is a solution to suck back those emissions, we need to seriously consider them, yes, but it's a wild, wild west of theories and test drives and hypotheticals right now. And given the cross-border, cross-ocean risks, there needs to be more oversight on what is happening now. There needs to be a multilateral body that can monitor and regulate this. And there isn't. There simply isn't. And this is also what's scaring scientists and academics and me.
I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can.
Which is their argument, right? We can continue churning out fossil fuels
some geoengineering.
and invest in these high-tech solutions. I mean, yeah, well.
We can transition away from fossil fuels and engineer the climate.
All right.
Okay, agree to disagree. Okay. All right. If you're listening at home, you can vote who you thought won the debate.
No winners and losers here, Jack. We're all losers. The planet is going to burn and we're all going to bake.
Okay, right. I might agree with you there. Okay, so back to our quiz question. I hope you listening at home have come up with your answer. To repeat the question for you, which event inspired the idea of using aerosols in the atmosphere to cool the Earth? Liling, do you know it?
Kaboosh. Yes. That's the sound that I think a volcanic eruption makes, or my attempt to mimic it. So yeah, the answer is volcanoes. We did a story on this some time back, so I know it has something to do with the sulfur dioxide that comes out of these eruptions. And it was found that they had a cooling effect on the surrounding atmosphere when these eruptions occurred. But I do not recall the exact event or when it was that this was first discovered.
Okay. So you've got half. Yeah, you've got. I do. I've got to write the question. I did not know about it though. I would say before I did the research for this, I wasn't aware that it was the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, volcano in Luzon, in 1991. And after that, scientists began exploring this idea that deliberately injecting aerosols into the atmosphere could mimic volcanoes and help counteract global warming. So the eruption ended up injecting millions of tons of sulfur dioxide, as you said, into the stratosphere. And this created this massive aerosol layer that reflected the sunlight and led to temporary global cooling. Do you have any idea of how much the global temperatures dropped after this?
I don't remember. I think it was quite significant. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cooling of half a degree, 0.5 degrees Celsius, and it lasted for 18 to 36 months. So this was essentially a real-world experiment, and seemingly the theory does work, but there are the side effects, as we've explored. Some caveats to this being a game changer.
Yeah. I am more inclined to see this one as a feasible geoengineering attempt, given it's a matter of mimicking what's already happening.
Stop the pod, Lilings. She's agreed with me.
That's on 1 point. 1 point. All right.
We'll take it. Okay, that's it for this episode of Climate Conversation. Thanks as always for joining us. Leave your comments. Tell us who you thought won the debate and what you think about a future with climate geoengineering being a strong part of it.
Thanks for joining us today. Catch you again next week. I'm Liling Tan. Bye for now.
And I'm Jack Board. Thanks as always to the team that put together this podcast. Slaye Win, Tiffany Ang, Janani Jahari, and Pei Ning Ho.